And we are live here on the Mark Goldberg program. Welcome to the program. Welcome to the show. I am your host, Mark Goldberg from Mark Vlogs Watches. Today it is time to talk Rolex and Negronis. But first things first. Over the next few minutes, some of you good people will be piling into the room here. And so here's what happens on a live stream, guys. A bunch of you will be watching it live as you come into the room, and you and I will be chit-chatting a little bit, but most of you will watch this, thousands of you, in fact, will watch this video posted up onto YouTube sometime after the actual live event. And in those cases, it can be a little irritating to deal with all the blah, blah, blah from, me greeting people and so forth. So if you really want to just get into the topic with me, which is going to be how to snipe a Rolex. What does that mean? How do I do it? How does it work? What do I suggest? What's the dealio with sniping a Rolex? And of course, Negroni talk. The king of cocktails. We'll discuss that too if you'd like. Just move the action ahead about 4, 5, 6 minutes, and you'll be right with us there. So, who's with us so far? Well, of course, Val and Grey Moon is first. Fistos, respectos. Thank you for being here, my friend. Show enough. Mike V. Enjoyed me the other night. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you being here with me. And Junior Johnson and about 25 or 30 others of you already. So, thanks for coming in here, guys. We'll give it a few minutes for word to spread. I never plan these things. These are just sort of like spontaneous, human combustion. What happens is the mood comes upon me. Let's see. We've got, the names are always Sylve Arnett. Sounds like you're Dutch, maybe, Sylve. And we've got Watch You Are from Switzerland. Sure enough. Am I a Manhattan or an old-fashioned kind of guy? Well, as you know from the title of this Rolex and Negronis, this stream, I'm drinking a Negroni, which is my cocktail of choice. Right now I'm drinking it, but about in an hour or two, I will indeed be streaming it. Now, between Manhattan and old-fashioned. But between Negroni and old-fashioned, Negroni. Here's the thing about the Negroni, and I have to confess, it's an odd relationship. You get to be a certain age and you think you know your drink, and then one day you have a Negroni and you're like, this is kind of terrible. Let me taste that again. Yep, kind of terrible. If I were to describe what it tasted like, it would be bittersweet, herbal, medicinal. Basically, guys, the Negroni tastes an awful lot like NyQuil. I kid you not. Tastes an awful lot like NyQuil. Until you have your second one. And then after that, the palate wraps itself around this bizarre combination of medicinal flavors, and you wind up with something, truly beautiful. This is a drink for the adult palate, guys. This is not, peach schnapps. This is not malt liquor. Flavored with Mike's Hard Lemonade or something. This is an adult beverage for the sophisticated palate. What do you guys like to drink? Let's take a look. Watch Wide Web. Hey, Mark. Yusuf, Bahrain with 1957 Trilogy Railmaster on the wrist. That's an Omega. Tell me who makes that, or is Trilogy a brand? I don't know what it is, but hey, it's almost my birth year, except for it's just a little older than me, but not a lot. Mike, you bought the ingredients and made a Negroni last night. It was horrible. Well, what did I just say? The first one is like NyQuil. Your palate has got to wrap itself around these medicinal, herbal, bitter, and sweet flavors. So man up, grow a sack, stick it out. You just need to drink 4 or 5 of them. Now, I don't mean necessarily all at once, but over the next few days, that's what you got to do. I mean, it's not Jägermeister, and it's not like Jägermeister quite, but if you like Jägermeister, you will like this. And if you don't, then once you get used to the Negroni, you will be able to drink a Jaeger bomb. It's kind of how it works. But Mike, it's very important that you got the right ingredients. Okay, you need a good gin. This is Tanqueray Sevilla Orange, but you can use Bombay Sapphire, Hendrix, any good, any good gin. But you don't want to put the most classic, the most expensive. You don't want to put $100 gin in there because you're going to be mixing it with stuff. The gin comes through, but use a good gin. All right. Second, Campari. Well, it's 1/3 gin, 1/3 Campari. Campari is Campari. No substitution will do. And then your third ingredient is vermouth, but it must be sweet vermouth. And it's not good enough that it is just red vermouth. It must say sweet vermouth upon the label. If it doesn't say that, it's going to be even more horrible than it should be. So tell me if you managed to make it, Mike. Mike's is always good, but hard to stop. I believe you're talking about Mike's Hard Lemonade. I never actually had it. But, I like cider and other things on those, The blueberry mojitos. I like me a mojito. Never had a blueberry one. Mojito's got crushed up, it's like a caipirinha. It's like that Brazilian drink. It's got muddled mint leaves, sugar, and rum. So I'm not sure how the blueberry would go, but I'm going to take your word for it. Watch Wide Web says that Railmaster is, of course, an Omega. I feel vindicated because I thought it was an Omega, but you get me back into these watches in the 60s and beyond, and I don't know them all. So yeah, glad I got that one. Makes me feel like a real watch dude. Stephen Reed, hey, from Wheeling, Illinois. You are not far, Stephen Reed, and welcome to being here. Danny Boy from Chelsea, London. I've been to London, just never Chelsea, but I would love to go sometime. Oh, Danny Boy. Thurston Howell III, good evening. And we know from prior experience, Thurston is a Marianne kind of a guy. Bombay Sapphire, Campari, Martini, Sweet Vermouth. Well, then you had the right ingredients, Mike. You did good. You said it was horrible. Like I said, you just need that palate of yours to wrap around it. Just get used to drinking NyQuil. You will persevere. You will be fine. Valen says the mics, it tastes just like lemonade, but with a nice kick. All right, that's good. I'll try that because hard cider tastes nothing like cider. It tastes nothing like apples. Just tastes hard, but fizzy, and I like it. All right, guys. Let me, the beard. The beard is on point tonight. I find beards to be very, very tricky, to be quite frank. Now, I've always figured the more of this mug that I cover up, the better. So I do think that the beard is working for me, but there's the whole thing of scissors and getting it all correct. And I always mess that up. Plus, I'm a little OCD, so stray hairs just make me nuts. But what I have is one of those. It's like basically a beard trimmer with not the replaceable, the number one, the number two. What do you call those guards? I have a beard trimmer with a dial for settings, and there's 20 steps, and this is as long as it gets everywhere except for the mustache is just a little bit shorter than the rest because I don't like it getting into my mouth. That makes me nuts. I see people with scraggly beards and the hairs are in their mouth, and I'm like, dude, there's only one or two occasions in your life when it is actually a good thing to have hair in your mouth. And it absolutely should not be yours. Okay, y'all, you with me, guys? So that's number one. And then, but anyway, and then a little under here. Anyway, so a long way of telling you that, when my beard starts to upset me, I just pull out the clipper and I go to town. Also, I color my beard. Which is why when you look at these videos, my beard looks different in every one of them. Too funny. Craig Shit wants to know if there's any word from Moneypenny. Sadly, no. I'm pretty sure that Moneypenny is my underground source at Rolex, Geneva, Switzerland, is chained to a radiator somewhere in Switzerland in a basement, with a feeding tube and kept semi-comatose to keep him or her away from me. Salud, Sebastian. That's what a barber is for. Well, I have this aversion to beard barbers. Yet. So, Zeke, this is a fantastic question right here. And I'm going to start diving into the questions. And then we're also going to ultimately talk about this topic, how to snipe a Rolex. What does that even mean? So my go-to watch for dog training, well, I probably have 30 different choices. Basically, anything but a Rolex, because it's not that I don't want to use my Rolex. It's not that I don't want to feel the steel and enjoy possessing and wearing, utilizing a Rolex tool watch. But I'm working in, in a kennel, and I'm often reaching into metal objects and, metal kennels, metal doors, metal gates, metal everywhere. And as you guys know, most of you walk through doorways like this, just even wood frame doorways. And I'm dealing constantly with reaching into and out of metal. So it's very easy to scrape them. It's one thing to scratch them, but the scrape, that gives you that gunk, that gouge, that's deep. No. So I rarely will wear. I don't usually wear a Rolex in the kennel. However, a really good go-to is the Zin 104. That, I don't mind banging that up. I really haven't, but that's a good one, the Zin 104. Today was the Tudor Pelagos. And it was not the FXD. It was not the Tudor Pelagos FXD. I don't like that one. The bezel turns both ways. That's weird. Number one. Number two, what's the second thing I don't like? Oh, the fixed lugs. So your options are a single pass NATO strap or a single pass NATO strap. That's all you get. And I don't like that at all. And I also don't like that it has no date. I have enough no date watches. And I also don't like that on the loomed bezel, every single minute is hashed out. So it's an incredibly busy bezel. It's a very busy bezel, buddy. Busy bezels when you illuminate the thing. So anyway, yeah, that's a long way of answering that question. Am I a fan of sidecars or penicillins? I'd have to look them up. The penicillin, I don't know. The sidecar I've heard of, but I don't honestly know what it is. Watch you are. For what it's worth, I disagree with your opinion of Rolex trying to be the new Patek, but I think Omega will be the new Rolex. I'll tell you, look, there's room for multiple opinions. This one's mine. And let me kind of frame it up for the guys. I feel that Rolex is controlling distribution. You know how you have to basically romance the Rolex AD to get a watch now? To the point where I would say the vast majority of collectors and people who are even interested in Rolex have given up on the idea of getting it from an AD altogether, which I think is a shame. And I often talk about how to form a relationship with the AD. And I'll continue to talk about that. But let's be honest, it irritates a lot of people that you do have to romance the AD now. And the reason that you have to romance the Rolex AD is there are more of us who want them than there are Rolex watches to go around at the AD. Number one. So for every watch they get, they've got 10 requests. That's the first thing. The second thing is they're very well aware of the fact that even though the Rolex prices have rolled back some, that what they're selling you at MSRP, manufacturer's suggested retail price, is well under what you can get for it in the secondary market, right? So quick wristwatch check. This is an OP41 in green, and we'll talk about this one. This is the Stella Dial green. We'll talk about this particular watch when we get to talking about sniping watches. I know that you can't quite tell from the lighting here, but this is the green one. And it's a, I don't know, $6,000 watch. But its resale is somewhere between 10, 12, 13, in that area. So here's what the AD knows when they sell you one of these. They're selling it to you for $6,000, and you can walk across the threshold and sell it for more than sell it for more than what they sold it to you for, a lot more. And that your margin at 100% is going to beat their margin at 35 or 40%, which means you stand to make more money on the watch if you sell it right away or flip it than they made. And they're simultaneously being advised by their reps who control that relationship back to Geneva, Switzerland. And it's an important relationship for the AD. Brings a lot of people into the store that buy things other than Rolex, things that are way more profitable to them than Rolex. See, guys, it's like the art of war. The AD is not your enemy. You need him to be your friend. But what do friends do? What is a friendship relationship if not composed of understanding? You must understand their position, which is why I'm explaining it to you here. So you have to now romance the Rolex AD. And listen, guys, it was never like that. If you go back 5 years, you could actually buy a used Rolex cheaper than you could buy a new one. And although he's not on my favorite people list right now, credit where credit is due. Archie Luxury, the Pontiff, the Horned Beast, the manic depressive one, talked all about that. That's how I found him. And if you've been listening to him for more than 5 years, that's how you found him too. And he was right until the market shifted. But even back in that era, if you wanted a Patek Philippe, they wanted a blood sample. They wanted a sperm sample. They wanted 10 years of tax returns. Guys, buying a Patek Philippe has always required you to essentially interview with the AD. And it makes sense. Rolex manufactures 800,000 to 1 million or 1.2 million, maybe at most, watches per year. And yes, a human hand touches every one of them. They're flying down the robotic, assembly line. Boom, touched it. Boom, touched it. Boom, touched. There's a lady who just touches. I exaggerate because I'm sure they're noodling them and adjusting them, by hand. But it is also a lot of automation on the Rolex process, which, by the way, I think that makes them brilliant. I mean, these are the most robust. This is, for my money, this is the best brand of watch you're ever going to find. But they make 1 million of them a year. And Patek, they make 80,000 a year. They assemble every one of them painstakingly by hand with a woman or a man with a loop, on them. Every one of those things is made by hand. They don't even make 100,000 of them a year. So they could always be very, very picky about who bought them. And they were. And they are. Which brings me back to Rolex. That's what's happening right now with Rolex. You're having to take down your shorts. They're putting on the glove and determining whether you are Rolex material as far as the AD goes. And who can blame them? They're under so much pressure. Okay. But as Rolex is moving up into Patek category, tolerating the gray market, by the way, why do you think they tolerate these ridiculous prices that the gray market is charging? Even though they're softening up a bit now, that has to do with market conditions in the overall economy. Doesn't have inflation, China, a lot of things, but doesn't have to do with Rolex. But Rolex could stop it in a minute if they wanted to, but they don't. They don't stop it. Why? Because that's pushing up the perceived value of the brand. And believe me, luxury goods are all about perceived value. Is the Rolex watch really all that much better? Is this, how much better than the Omega Aquaterra is this? This much? This much? That much? Or like no difference? I mean, that's for you to decide, but let me tell you what. Rolex is trying to push into the exclusivity and the pricing of Patek. They are bringing Tudor along to take their place as what we have known from Rolex, which is why Tudor supplies are down. They're creating all this demand for the Pelagos FX, that one that I just bagged on because I don't personally care for it. Go buy one. Not so easy. I bought the Rancher's Panda, Tudor Panda chronograph. Go buy one of those. I like my AD. My AD likes me. They sell me Rolex and they have Tudor. I asked them, what about getting a Panda, a Tudor Panda? James and Sons in Orland Park, Illinois, after a very long and arduous wait, was good enough to sell me a Panda Daytona. So obviously they like me, because that's like a gift to purchase that at retail. That's a gift. And it's one that I'm grateful for. Okay. But when I asked them for a Panda Tudor, what they said was, we haven't seen one in 6 months, and we got 5 guys on the list ahead of you. So, and I had mentioned I had the opportunity to buy it on the secondary market. So they suggested, I might consider that, only because they had a long list and they had no idea when they were going to see any. And that's Tudor. Since when? Since when has Tudor been impossible to get? Since lately. So watch you are. You got more than your money's worth off of this answer. So you may disagree with me, and that's fine. But I'm pretty firm and I'm pretty convinced. Junior Johnson sitting in the smallest room in my house while watching this. I think Junior Johnson is worshiping is on the porcelain throne. And may I just put in a quick word? This is not a sponsored video, but 2 things. 1, Squatty Potty. Trust me on Squatty Potty. And secondly, if you get the opportunity, let me ask you a couple quick favors while we're sitting here. Favor number 1, hit the like button on me right now. Just do it. Just hit that like button right now. Likes are super hard to get on live streams. I don't know why, but they are. And if you hit the like button, it'll help me a whole lot. So just smash it, lick it, put your nose on it, do what you got to do. Hit the like button right now. Number 1. And number 2, when we are done here, you got to go on my channel and search for Mark Goldberg Thailand Bum Gun. And you will learn about how to save trees, toilet paper, completely unnecessary. I mean, maybe a few squares for blotting purposes. But let me tell you, they know things in Asia that we don't know. And I don't want to explain it right now, but just look up on my channel, Mark Goldberg, the Thailand Bum Gun, and you will. It's going to. All your life, you've taken the blue pill. Okay, all your life, you've taken the American, North American, Western European, Australian. You've taken that red pill about what constitutes civilized bathroom behavior. We don't know nothing. We don't know nothing. I mean, let me ask you a question. Do you take your dirty dishes that have gravy all over them, brown turkey gravy, and do you just swipe at them with a couple of paper towels and then put them right back up into your cupboard? No! You hit them with a stream of water. And anyway, so trust me on this. Look up my Thailand Bum Gum video. Mark, I've been having hiccups for the past 30 minutes. How do I end this? Oddly, first of all, nice to see you. Thank you for joining me today. Hope you're well. I have the cure. And I'm going to describe the cure for you right now. For this cure, you will need a bottle of water or a big, tall glass of water. This is the cure for hiccups. And I'm not even kidding here. I don't even know how I know this, but I've known this for years, and it has literally never failed me. What you want to do is you want to take a couple of deep breaths so you are fully oxygenated. And then on your tall glass of water or on your bottle of water, you want to take 10 gulps, followed by 10 sips, followed by 10 gulps. Now, the reality is you will get through that first 10 gulps. You will get through the first 10 sips, and all this without taking a breath. But you will likely not get all the way through the last 10 gulps. You'll get however far you get. And then just resume breathing normally, and it'll be gone. And I would like it if you would do that now, and then report back in at the end of the comments that you have done so that we can so that you can tell me how it's working for you. Nice choices, Mark. Yeah, I would hate to gouge the Rolex. Yeah, so what Zeke is talking about there are, this is what I wear when I'm hanging out, when I'm not working, but I'm working in a Zin 104 or a Pelagos or a Seiko Turtle. Lots of choices. Okay, I want to blast through some of these comments, but I really did promise you that I would talk about how to snipe a Rolex. So I want to get to that ultimately. Fun fact, went to my AD and they fired the guy in charge of Rolex allocation as he was advantaging some clients and not respecting the one watch per client list rule. Here's the funny thing. What you are talking about is going to clearly be policy at that AD. There is no one watch per client list rule. So real quick, story time, boys, story time, and girls. Might be one or two of you ladies here too. You are not the client of Rolex. You are the client of the AD, and the AD is the client of Rolex. The AD buys watches from Rolex and sells them to you. So you're the client of an AD. Number one. Number two, ADs. I don't know how many there are in the world, but I believe in the United States there are 300 or 400 or 500 of them just in the US. And these are, some of them are chains like Torno that probably have 15 or 20 units. And then there's your private family-owned jewelry stores that some of them are small chains like my guy, James and Sons, who has Orland Park, Naperville, Chicago, and Indiana. So I think they've got 4 now. But there are some, like the AD, the small AD, I forget the name of this AD, but a super nice guy. The AD I visited in Albany, New York, who I think has 1 store. Okay. Each of these companies, each of these hundreds of companies that has the distribution contract with Rolex and then they sell to you, each of them has different store personal policies on how they sell stuff. To the best of my knowledge, Rolex has not told their AD network, thousands of them around the world, has not told them sell 1 watch per customer, has not told them how to allocate them specifically. Sorry, the Negroni's kicking in. But there has been some communication from Rolex to the AD, and some of that includes selling to clients who will love the watch and who are not buying to flip, right? So they've asked the ADs, hey, kind of, vet these clients a little bit so that you're selling to people that you have confidence in, which, by the way, can make it hard to buy that first Rolex in an AD because they tend to sell to the people who they know. And if you've ever bought a Rolex from an AD, when you go back to that AD, wear it in, or they're going to ask to see it if you're asking for something new. You bought a Sea Dweller from them 3 years ago, wear it in there when you're going in to ask for a Starbucks. If you don't, they're going to say, hey, bring it on in soon for a steam clean, free steam clean. And they will steam clean it, and it will look like new, but what they're really wanting to do is to make sure you haven't sold it. And who can blame them? They're under pressure too. Even if Rolex was on NATO, I would hate to ding it bad. I'm with you. I would not. The Omega Globemaster has the best look with that vintage pie pan dial, says Val and Gray Moon. And I don't disagree. The pie pan dial is very, very classic. Oh, that reminds me about Omega. So I'm telling you, this is my opinion, that Rolex is trying to move and is succeeding at this. They're moving up into the exclusivity and even slowly the price range of Patek. They're bringing Tudor along with them in their orbit. So Tudor will now become more exclusive and ultimately more expensive. So if you like some Tudor watches, get them now, because 5 years from now, they're going to be a lot more pricey than they are at this moment. And what I think is other brands are looking at this and going, well, where do we fit into the shifting landscape? And I think that Tudor is rightly saying we could fill the old school shoes of Rolex, which is to say they were available, but they were not heavily discounted. And I think that that's where Omega is heading right now. I think that As the rancher likes to say, a rising tide lifts all boats. So as Rolex moves up, they're bringing not only their redheaded stepchild Tudor along with them, but they're also bringing Omega unwittingly or maybe even unintentionally along with them. But I think that Omega is making some nice watches in order to capitalize on the opportunity. The more difficult Rolex gets, the more tempting Omega becomes. Now, Omega, if you're listening to me, what I would tell you by way of advice would be careful with a couple of things. Don't introduce hundreds of dial variations. Don't copy every Stella dial color, which is what you've been doing lately. Your Aquaterra, you just copied every Stella dial, that Rolex has done. Stop that. Start innovating. Keep the line smaller, tighter, and more exclusive. And for God's sakes, don't come out with thousands of special editions, because that just dilutes the line. Everybody thinks, oh, I've got a watch that's 1 of 100 or 1 of 1,000. That's not good for collectors. It's not. It's for the novice collector who doesn't know any better. The reality is you want a watch which is saleable, so that if you decide to churn and burn or recycle your dollars, right? I want to get my money out of this so I can experience that. If you're to do that, you should not have a unicorn, meaning a highly controlled special edition, especially when there are dozens of special editions. Special editions just aren't that special anymore. Alexander Vigo says, I visited around 5 ADs around LA last week, heard different stories. True. Found one with whom there was a personal connection. It's becoming like dating. That's exactly what it's like. There is no central story. Every one of these ADs will tell you a different story about how they handle things like, for example, I bought an OP41. My most recent Rolex purchase was from CD Peacock in Schaumburg, Illinois, in Woodfield Mall. OP41 with dark blue dial. So I've got 3 of these watches: this green, the Tiffany turquoise, and the dark blue that I got from CD Peacock, which has the Sunray dial. And they don't even call it a waiting list anymore when you put your name down for something. They call it a wish list, which honestly, I think is a whole lot, speaking of honest, I think it's a whole lot more honest that they call it a wish list than a wait list, because they make no promises. They just say, hey, we're registering the fact that you want one, and if we can help you fulfill your wish, we will, but no promises. And I think that's about as honest as it gets. Anyway, there is no hard and fast policy among ADs. They're all different. So thoughts on traveling to a smaller chain AD or out of state for sniping? Okay. OG, let's get into it right now. But before I kind of get into the broad topic, let me zero in on your question. First, smaller chain versus larger chain. I like it better. I do. Smaller chain, those are going to be family owned. 1, 2, 3, 4 locations. I like that better than going to a corporate AD where you're dealing with just various layers of management and 20, 30 locations. Why? Well, you know what? When I go to, let's say James and Sons as an example. When I go to James and Sons in Orland Park, I'm dealing with Brian, who has worked for James and John, Jimmy and John, the 2 owners of that chain. He has worked for them and with them for 15, 20 years now. And he sees and he speaks to them on a regular basis. And in fact, I've been in that store and met not just Brian, the general manager, but also Jimmy and John, the owners of the chain, who have bigger fish to fry than just one store. But nonetheless, they are vitally involved with each of their several units, very involved. So basically, when you deal with a relatively small chain, you're dealing with a family-owned business. And I think that that's personally appeals to me. Guys, I'm a dog trainer and an author. This is the latest edition of my book, The Art of Training Your Dog. It is available on Amazon right now, The Art of Training Your Dog. Mark Goldberg and Monks of Mesquite, my co-authors. I'm a little family-owned business. And so I appreciate the family-owned business. Some of them are smaller, some of them are larger. James and Sons, certainly a larger volume business than I, but it is a family-owned, operated, and run business. And management, if they're not blood family, they're like family. They've been together for decades. Why is that important? Because the guy or the woman opening and closing the store is family or is like family and knows the family. It is it's a scenario where you can talk to a decision maker eventually, right? I've met the owners of the chain, which to me is like a really big deal. And upper management, which is an even bigger deal because Brian's there every single day. And that's the way I live, eat, and breathe dogs, writing, dog training, my books. Brian is over there eating, living, dreaming, drinking, just focusing on that business over there at James and Sons. And so if I can become a known to that crew over there, here's all they need to know about me. All they need to know is I love the watch and that I will not flip the watch, that they can entrust me with a watch that comes along with a blank check for the difference between what I'm buying for and what I could sell for. And I'm going to take that check when I get into my car and I'm going to rip it up. See, when I buy a watch from an AD, my intention is to never sell that watch unless and until I'm just cashing out of the entire watch game. You know, now I have bought watches from the gray market or from, private people. And that's what we're going to talk about when we talk about sniping. And I promise I'm getting to that right now. But I've never sold a watch that I bought from an AD. The very first one I bought from CD Peacock, and also in Woodfield, is a 34 millimeter two-tone date on a Jubilee, and I still have it. It's in this house. Oh no, it's at the bank. But nonetheless, I still own it. I still have it. I will never sell it. And when I think back on all the Rolexes I have bought and sold in my life, I have never sold one purchase from an AD. And that's sort of an understanding that you need to have with an AD. They just need to understand that about you. Okay. Sniping, that's a whole different story. You're not going to snipe one from the AD. So my first piece of advice to you is form a relationship with an AD, but that is a long dating process. You will have many dates with the AD before you ever kiss. Okay, lots. Let me talk to you about this watch right here, which I think is a really good example. In my mind, this is a special watch. This is the reference 124300, 41 millimeter Oyster Perpetual, current production model in green, informally known as one of the Stella dial colors. It's weirdly, by the way, guys, I was never interested in the OP, the Oyster Perpetual line of watches until this exact year for a bunch of reasons. First, there was a redesign, and you can see I've got a 7¼ inch wrist, but take a look at that dial. It fills most of my wrist, so it doesn't feel too small. It's really not 41. I mean, it's just, I don't know why they call it a 41, but from here to here, it's really like 39.5. But what they've done is they've made it mostly dial. So the dial is just so much larger than you would expect that it wears like a 41. So that's why they call it that. It's incredibly comfortable. And one of the things that it has is it has an excellent clasp. It's got the milled out clasp, but most importantly of all, it has this Easy Link Well, it's pretty hard for me to show it to you here. There it is. You can kind of see it there. But it's got the Easy Link adjustment system, so I can let this in or out with a quick click of the bracelet. I can let it in or out 5 millimeters, which is like half a link. I'm an individual who has swelling and contracting wrists. I get into the air conditioning, my wrist goes rink. I go out into the heat and the humidity, and my wrist goes up like that. So couple that with a personal case of wrist claustrophobia. Okay, I'm completely wrist claustrophobic. If I feel tightness around the wrist, I get a little panicky, which, by the way, is entirely why I like bracelets over rubber of any kind, because bracelets just kind of drape around the wrist, and I don't feel them near. I'm not as conscious of them, nearly as much. And right now, I've got the link out. Let me see. Can you see that? It's pretty hard to show, but anyway, see how that folds under or pulls out? Folds under or pulls out. Well, that gives me 5 millimeters of adjustment. And believe me, even though I have a wrist that changes a whole lot during the day, that 5 millimeters is exactly what I need. $6,000 at the AD, but this is a Stella dial, so super hard to get. And the reason is there are too many people who want them. And the AD is shipping very, very few of the Stella dials. As we know, the AD, or Rolex to the AD is shipping relatively few watches. I mean, they're shipping, guys. There will be people in the comments here, especially after this posts up live. All kinds of people are going to be posting, oh my God, I went to the AD for the first time and walked away with a watch. I mean, there's always somebody gets the golden ticket in their chocolate bar, Happens all the time. But by and large, for most of us, there's a waiting period involved and a romancing the stone kind of a scenario. But I judged the fact that this particular version of the OP, this dial, was going to be very, very difficult to get from my AD, because I'm guessing they'll see one of them a year. And I'm respectful and understanding of my AD. My AD will have people who are in there spending tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars on things that I don't typically buy, like engagement rings and diamond necklaces and diamond tennis bracelets. And they might throw them the opportunity to buy something like this at MSRP. And I'm not in that category customer. And I get that. But I bought this from a collector who will remain nameless by name, location, etc. Let me just say, this was an individual in the United States of America who bought it from the AD, mostly because he was offered it. And he worried that if he said no, that his AD would not offer him other watches in the future that he really did want, which is an understandable concern. Whether that's legitimate or not, by the way, guys, because I get that question all the time. Should I buy this, whatever, that I don't want, just to not piss off my AD? I have mixed feelings about it. So real quick, what I'll say is, yeah, you should buy it if you can afford it, if it won't kill you, if you can wear it, or if you can quietly flip it. But I would say mostly if you can really afford it and keep it a while. And by a while, I mean 2, maybe 3 years. If you can't, then just thank your AD for the opportunity and remind them this is the one that I want, and move on and hope that they will call you for that. But in this case, this individual was concerned about turning the AD down, and so he purchased it. But he understood that flipping it was going to cause a problem in his relationship with the AD if it would come to light. Now, how could it come to light? Well, if you sell it on Chrono or on eBay, typically there's going to be pictures that show the serial number or the location of the watch. And then that becomes a problem because there's so few of these watches. If I were to tell you the city and the state, the AD who sold it would at least be able to recognize that it was their watch. And so obviously I'm not going to do that. And sniping. What does sniping mean? Sniping means buying at a price that you consider to be, if not a bargain, then at least a safe price to pay. I purchased this watch about 2 or 3 months ago when Rolex prices, they weren't in what I would call free fall, but they were in more flux, than they are now. And so it was a slightly scary time to buy a Rolex for those of us who might try and time the market. Now, I'm not in favor of trying to time the market down to the cheapest dollar, but let me just say that my guy offered me this watch at $12,000. That was double retail. And when I looked on Chrono, what I found at the time was I could find these anywhere from 12, which is what he was asking, to 13, 14, 15. But prices were in flux, meaning they were changing. And by changing, they were falling a little. Well, not a little, they were falling. And so I offered a price. And by the way, the green is not a watch that I was specifically in the market for. I had the turquoise and I had the dark blue sunray dial already. But hey, an opportunity is an opportunity. So I made an offer, which I didn't consider to be offensive, but I considered it to be conservative from my viewpoint. And that offer was 10.5, and we settled on 10.6. Well, actually, I offered 10, and then we wound up at 10.5, 10.6. And to me, that feels a bit like a snipe. And by snipe, I don't mean that you stole it from some poor sucker. I mean, my guy made money on the watch. He didn't make double on the watch, but he made good money on a watch that he owned a relatively short period of time. It's a sad moment. With a Negroni, some people use like an orange twist. I'm big on the orange slice, and when you're not watching, I will just suck the last of the Negroni, out of that. Oops, just kind of slopped the board a little bit. But anyway. Oh gosh, where did you guys go? I hope you're still here. Hold on. There we go. I'm a little Negroni happy. Anyway, so sniping. Listen, here's what you do, guys. You go on Chrono 24, you go on eBay, you want to look for make an offer. Even on Chrono, you can suggest a price. Suggest a price that makes sense to you based on previous sales, based on a number that you think that you will enjoy paying for the watch. That's how you do this. Don't fall in love with any specific example of a watch. Even though, in my mind, this is a special watch. I could have my choice of buying 20 or 30 different ones. I just wanted the one I could get for under $11,000. That's the one I wanted. Which green one did I want? The one that I could get for the cheapest price. They're all the same. So if you want to buy a Hulk, I don't care if you want to buy a Hulk of 2020 when they were discontinued or 2015, 17. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. Just get the one that you can get for the best price. And you do that by making offers. McLovin hopes the ADs choke on the poop that they spew out. I get it. So many people are mad at the AD. I get it. Especially if you don't have a relationship with one. I completely understand it. But at the end of the day, these are business people trying to make a buck, and we need them. Otherwise, there's no coherent distribution method for Rolex. So we need them. But forming that first relationship, man, it is difficult. Romancing is the right word indeed, says Alexander Vigo. It is, you have to date them. You have to make them feel like, you're special. It's not always so easy. It's a crash, not a correction, as Ocean, the Bohemian Guru, says. I don't fully agree with Ocean on that one. Don't get me wrong. I like my guy. I could listen to that voice all day long. Jeez, if I weren't already gay, Ocean would have made me gay. God. And he's not even that attractive. He's just like beautiful. It's the voice. Honest to God. Oh, Shin, I'm crushing on you, bromancing you hardcore. But I don't think it's a crash. I think we're just returning to where the levels were a couple years, maybe 2 years ago. So they're just getting sensible again. And what's happening is all the Bitcoin money, all the stupid, ridiculous Bitcoin money is bleeding out right now. I had a client show up the other day, a woman, lovely woman. She showed up in a Milgauss, and I was like, "That's a Milgauss," and she was so happy that I knew it. And when I showed her daughter my turquoise Tiffany version of that, her daughter's eyes got big because she'd never seen one and she wanted to. Rolex is a very, very special brand. The watch market may be crashing. Rolex is having a soft landing, coming back to prices that were more typical 2 years ago. And guess what? That's a good thing, guys. That's a good thing. There were too many carpetbaggers in our in our hobby. I had a number of my friends call me who are not interested in watches, asking if watches were the new Bitcoin and if they should be investing in Ethereum or in Rolex. And I don't like that. I bought watches when they were cheap, and I bought watches when they were expensive, and I'm dollar cost averaging in my my watch collection right now. But at the end of the day, I buy watches not to make money, but it's a love affair. Ooh. Damn, this is a really good. I never thought of this, Tom. I never thought of this at all. If you know what, I think I want to continue live streaming for a little while, because I believe, if not now, soon I will be rebel streaming. And by rebel streaming, I mean streaming when when the horn one, when the useless one is streaming. Oh, okay. Jeez. Well, it wouldn't be Patek Philippe. Don't get me wrong. I think Patek, they're beautiful. They're amazing. Do I need 5 identical ones? No. But it's an amazing brand of watch, Patek. However, they are not robust. I want a watch I can swim in, that I can knock around. I could operate a chainsaw, a tractor, lawn tractor. I could shoot in, shoot a gun in, that kind of thing. I probably should say Omega, but what I'm going to say right now off the top of my head is Breitling. I love me a Breitling. All right, let's see. And by he you mean the horned one, predicted the fall of TPG. I don't know anything about that. How did TPG, which I think is TGV, how did he fail? I don't know. I don't know about that. Let me know. I don't watch guys that I don't watch. Truman says it's all about purchase history, and that is very true with the AD. If you have previous purchase history and you can kind of show them like, hey, look, I still got this watch you sold me. They're going to feel a lot better about you, and then they feel like secure in selling you another watch. So yes, I do believe there's a lot to that, but you can form that relationship. The thing that you really need to let them understand is that you love the freaking watch. How can you have a purchase history without purchasing a watch at a Rolex boutique? Oh, McLovin, that is like the best question ever. It reminds me of a commercial when I was much, much younger. Guy goes in to get a job and he goes, I don't have any experience. Well, then we can't hire you. But how do I get the experience if you won't hire me? It's damned if you do, and it's damned if you don't. So I think that that's a fantastic question. And I think the way you do it is you start at a family-owned AD. You go in there, and you go in there once every 6 weeks. You go, physically go. Don't call, don't email. They get too many phone calls. They get too many emails. And that is an incredible amount of bullshit for them, because they have to answer them, or they'll get bad Yelp. And oh my God, they don't want bad Google, reviews and terrible social media. So they are very, very polite, but like, what a lot of work it is for them. Just go in there. Start making friends with a sales associate. Go and ask to see watches. They've got demo models now, guys. These are watches that have movements, boxes, papers, except for I think Rolex has withheld the box and papers so that the AD actually can't sell them. And you'll see watches for exhibition only, but you can try them on And you can, I don't recommend you go in there and buy tens of thousands of dollars worth of stuff you don't want, unless you were going to do it anyway. And if you were going to do it anyway, then do it at the AD where you want to make that relationship. So that certainly will help. But other than that, just go in there and go in. Don't be pesty, but go in periodically and let them know how much you love the watches and that you're not there to flip. McLovin with a $2.79 contribution in memory of Blue Shirt Buddha and Jupiter, my dearly departed cat. Jupiter lived to almost 20, which was a very long and happy life for Jupiter. Long-term, long fans of the channel will remember Jupiter. And if you go back, he's featured in a lot of my videos. And man, I had him till he was 20 years old. So I don't remember crying this so hard in my life. Man, that was tough. I don't even want to relive it. But let me just say, he went during COVID when, and those of you who have pets will remember the worst part of COVID. Now, at least the vets will let you into the office. But in the worst of it, they wouldn't even let you. They just came to the car. And I wanted to go with them, man, and I couldn't. And that was crushing. And then Blue Shirt Buddha, he did not live to the cat equivalent of 20. I mean, a cat at 20 years old is like a human at 90. Sadly, Blue Shirt Buddha was gone all too soon, but his memory lives on with friends of this channel, and I'm determined to keep Blue Shirt Buddha's best piece of advice alive, which was, in simple words, in Blue Shirt Buddha's words, don't sell Rolex, never sell Rolex. Many times I theorized about selling one or the other of the Rolex that I have, and he always went nuts. And then they just kept going up in price. So I was glad I listened. Sebastian Vinet says, regarding Tudor Chrono, my AD received 2 white and 2 black per year. So 2 Panda and 2 black per year. Man, that is not a lot. I really love it when the AD will reveal that information so that we know what's going on, because I haven't heard that before. And what's funny about that Panda, by the way, is it's not skyrocketing in price. It is not. I think it's around somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000. I forget. I think high 5s, low 6s. And that is not skyrocketing in price on the secondary market. But for a Tudor, it's holding its MSRP value. So that's a good thing. But yeah, those are really hard to get. And if you want one, I think you're pretty much going to have to get one on the secondary market. Thank you for these super chats, guys. They are not required, but they're very appreciated. Thank you so much. Show enough. Mark, what's the next watch on your AD list? Love the impromptu chats. Always entertaining and engaging. Show enough. I'm here for you. Show enough. Well, here's what my AD, one of my ADs, the one with the wish list, will let me put down umpteen watches on the wish list, but I don't think their wish list is terribly serious. I mean, I certainly hope they'd call me for that Wimbledon, but I don't love my chances. But James and Sons, they don't have this like long ass wish list where they'll let me put myself down for 5 watches. They asked me, what do you want next? When I buy a watch, what do you want next? And the last thing they sold me was the Panda Daytona. That was a huge get for me. I was so glad to get it. But it took me months to decide what I wanted next. And what I put myself ultimately on the list for was the upside down backwards weirdo half green, half black Sprite GMT left-handed drive. Now, that's how I'm on the list with my AD for that, with James and Sons. And by the way, I think they're going to get it for me. I just think it's going to take, I don't know how long. But one of these days, Brian's going to text me and go, hey, guess what? I'll be like, no, really? Wow. It took years on the Panda Daytona. And I don't think it will take as long on the Sprite, but I think I'm prepared. I'm buckled in. I'm strapped in for a long and bumpy ride. Because even though it's a strange watch, guys. You either think it's cool and ultimately very collectible, which is how I feel, or you think it's just some weirdo that you would never consider. I think it's cool. Now I'm wearing my my OP on my left hand, as I typically wear watches these days. But when I was a younger man and in college, this is my right hand. I always wore watches on my right hand because I was right-handed, and I thought you were supposed to. So I think when I get that Sprite, I'll probably wear it on the right. We shall see how that works. Again, thank you for the super chat, fellas. I authenticated my 36 turquoise OP in Albany. I think that's where you bought yours. Well, it's not where I bought mine, but I know that AD, super nice guy. I met the owner. Wish I could remember his name. It's a small AD, very, very nice. I travel to Albany several times per year because the monks of New Skeet, my co-authors on my books and my dear friends, and are about 45 minutes north of Albany. So Albany is where I fly in when I go to visit and work with the monks. Campari costs $40 a bottle. I can get a decent whiskey for that. That's expensive. I'm paying like $29 a bottle. Where are you, Bongo? Where you at? Here in the Chicago burbs, anywhere between $29 and $32. $29 when it's on sale. I should have never gotten rid of the SD43. I didn't. I still have it. I did think about it multiple times, but Blue Shirt Buddha went crazy and he scared me. I was like, never, don't sell it. No, never. Well, he would go nuts on me on the Cardinals group on WhatsApp, which we still have. Of course, Blue Shirt not there anymore, but you know, beautiful man, beautiful guy. But it is to his credit, I still have that watch. How to sell a Rolex on eBay? They limit the dollar amount. Well, I don't know that they limit the dollar amount, but they do. I wouldn't sell a look. I have bought Rolex on eBay. I've bought. And the reason that I felt comfortable buying, and still, I still feel comfortable buying Rolex on eBay, is I've handled enough Rolex to handle one and be able to say, on the basis of my personal examination, that I can have confidence whether it is legitimate or whether it is counterfeit. Also, I'm friendly with my AD, and there has been an occasion or two where I purchased a watch on eBay, now authenticated by the eBay authentication service, in which I have minimal faith, but I have taken those watches and said, this looks good to me. Let me go get an insurance appraisal over at the AD, which is like $75 or $100, which is further authentication. Gone are the days when you should think of going on in there to a random AD that you don't even do business with and saying, give me a free opinion here. Most of them won't do it, nor really should they, but they do appraisals. And so that's the route you want to go. And why am I confident? Because if I were to get a fake, eBay has such good buyer protections. It's not a big deal to reverse the sale. But when you're the buyer, you're well protected. When you're the seller, you get zero protection. I would not sell a Rolex on eBay. You are subject to fraud. So that begs the question: where would you sell? Where would you sell a Rolex? Well, you can sell it private collector to private collector through the forums, let's say, but then you want to meet at the bank or the police station so that it's a safe meeting. That's very important. Or sell to one of the known and trusted guys like Federico or David SW, any of those guys. I've sold to David SW multiple times, completely pain-free transaction. Am I getting as much as a private sale? No, but it's 100% safe and guaranteed. And believe me, pigs get led to slaughter. So I'd rather take a slightly smaller payout, but have it be secure. Sugar melting in the back of your throat anesthetizes some nerves back there. Well, Bongo, that is the whole secret, really, of Campari, I think. Cliff says, got a squatty potty and it's a game changer. Absolutely. And when you combine a squatty potty with the Thailand butt gun, which is like a salad sprayer, let me tell you that your nether region is completely vaporized. You know, everything back there is, you're talking about a very full cleansing experience. So would you recommend a sub date or a no date if you had no other choice? T-Bud, this is 100% personal. You can't go wrong either way. Either of them is excellent. I know there are a lot of Puritans who think no date. And in fact, okay, here's a fun fact. There is no such thing called Submariner no date. There is the Submariner, and the Submariner has no date. And then there is the Submariner date, which does. Me, I want the date, okay? That's me. I feel like that's a super valuable, very, very super useful complication. But there are people who don't like that Cyclops and prefer the overall purity of the no date sub. But that would not be me. Explorer 2 or SD43. Again, it's 100% personal preference, but I'll tell you mine. I've had them both. I bought the SD43 from James & Sons, and therefore I've never sold it. Still have it. Explorer 2, I bought it on the gray market, enjoyed it for a year, and then sold it, which I kind of regret. So here's the deal. Between those two watches, the Explorer is the easier to wear watch. It is more slender. It's a big watch, but it's slightly smaller. I think it's 42, whereas the SD43 is not only 43, so it's a little bit wider, but it's chunkier, it's taller. But I know I want that Sprite, but it's more about the left-hand aspect of it than it is the GMT complication. Because in general, I'm not a big GMT guy. So the GMT complication on the Explorer 2, although nice, and I had the polar version, which is really cool. Although it's a nice complication, I feel like the SD43 with its spinning 120 click bezel, yeah, that's the one that, so yeah, that one. And that's why. Sebastian, I'm not sure what you're referring to. They want to be fair to their clients. I think you're referring back to the one watch per customer. They want to be fair to their clients. It is not an AD policy. Well, let me just say, it is not an AD policy blanket for all ADs. It is not. That may very well be the policy at your AD, however. They're all different. Mark, Sicilian Gamer, I have worn my 30 millimeter Explorer 1 on multiple combat deployments. Thank you for your service. I own a few other beautiful pieces, but now I can't take off the Explorer 1 dings and all. Never, never, never let it occur to you, Sicilian Gamer. Never let it occur to you to do either one of two things to that watch. And the first would be to sell it. Never sell that. Think of what that watch has been through with you. That was your buddy. That's your battle buddy right there. Number one. Think of all the guys that you served with, all the crap and scary shit that you went through. And that watch was there with you, serving you the entire time that you were wherever you deployed to. So I think that gives it provenance that cannot be duplicated in any other way, number one. And the next thing that you should never do with that watch is you should never polish it. Just be sure if you ever service it, like let's say I wouldn't even service it at all unless it begins to run way out of spec. So if it starts going super fast, well, then you could just demagnetize it. But if it ever goes super slow, or if it just becomes weird, when you take it for service, you tell them, do not polish anything. Service the movement only, because that is your old friend and you do not want him getting any kind of a transplant. The patina, the memories of that are irreplaceable. So thank you for everything that you've done for the free world, and you will thank your watch by taking good care of it and never changing the cosmetics of it. I don't care how chewed up it is. Every one of those is a sacred memory, right? Who needs a Rolex when you can get a Squally diver without worry? Well, I don't know if you're being serious. Squally. But I mean, you're talking about the difference between, look, here's what Squally is. It tells time and it's robust, but it's also crap. Their entire backstory is pretty much a lie. But I mean, if you want to watch that like looks decent and doesn't cost a lot, there you go. I will smash the like if you promise to have a second Negroni. Oh, I can't. Like, I'm such a lightweight. Well, if it helps, that one was a double. On the the metal shot glass thing where it has like the big side and the small side. I have one of those. The small side makes you a single. The big side makes you a double. I had the double. So what I'm going to say is you better hit the like now because I had a double. The Sermon is selling now for $17K on the gray market. It is becoming the dog of the range along with the SD43. It has definitely fallen in price, but all that means is it's a buying opportunity if you always wanted one. Guys, the Hulk, which I have the Hulk. I bought it from James & Sons for MSRP like $9,000, $9,200, $9,300. What a beautiful watch. What a beautiful price. I bought the Hulk from James & Sons in Orland Park. I'm so grateful for them to sell me that watch because by the time I bought it, it was in a lot of demand. And then it got discontinued the year after I purchased it. And then eventually it shot up to as high as like $30,000, which is like nuts for a $9,000 watch. But it's special. Green ceramic bezel. I know you're talking about the Kermit, which is pre-ceramic. So we'll come back to that. But my Hulk. Green ceramic bezel, green sunray dial. Oh my God, it is so cool. But it went up to 30 grand, which is like really a lot. And right now it's probably down to like 23 to 25. Guys, these are not problems. These are just buying opportunities. The same thing. The Sermon was up there right along with the Hulk. And for a while it was outpacing the price increase of the Hulk. These were just Bitcoin millionaires coming into our territory and pricing us out of the market. They were just like gentrifying our neighborhood, and they're gone now and good riddance. So don't worry about it. These are just good buying opportunities. 69 Supernova. Hey, Mark, I just got my sub a few months ago, and a couple of weeks ago, I got the reverse Panda Tudor. Very nice. That's, as we know, hard to get. My original plan was to get the Tudor so they would sell me the sub, but I got it first. Honestly, so you bought them both new at the AD. Well, see, there's a guy got the golden ticket twice. That's excellent. That's really good news. They like you. Don't flip those watches. Go visit them from time to time and wear them both. Munch FPV just recently got into watches. Jesus, it's addicting. So many wants and wishes. My wallet shed a single tear. Munch, it's been a while since I've made just like a normal video, but the sort of like the slogan of my channel on a regular video, my intro, says Mark Vlogs Watches. Is it an illness or is it a hobby? And well, what you have just found is that it's both. So we're here for you, buddy. This is your support group. We're going to help put you into remission. And then my best advice is stop looking at Instagram and get off the forums, because that makes you watches that you just otherwise don't want. WW, thank you for catching my stream, and you're welcome for all my expertise. Hello from New Orleans, says Exhibit X. Hit the like button as the man asks. Merci beaucoup. Laissez le bon temps rouler avec moi. And thank you for hitting the like button now. It's really appreciated, because these upvotes are very hard to get on YouTube Live, but I sure do appreciate it. Let's see. Ahmad says, I called my AD today, and the guy said they'll have a new inventory next week. Big possibility I'll get a Milgauss. I purchased only one Datejust from my AD 3 years ago. Well, great. That's good. I mean, the Milgauss is a little bit of a cult Rolex model. It is not every day there's 100 guys calling them for a sub. There's 200 guys calling them for a Daytona, and there's only one guy calling them for a Milgauss. So, I think if you're lucky enough to be in love with some of the more obscure Rolex models, that is in your favor. Never sell sports Rolex. Well, that is exactly what AD said. Mark is right about Tudor's fake hype. Well, thank you for that, John. But here's the weirdness. It started out as fake hype, but it's becoming real. When do we cross from, when is it exactly that we cross from, from fantasy into reality? I think that's happening, with Tudor right now. Junior Johnson wants to know if I get bit by dogs often. And listen, every time, that's me knocking wood, right? Every time I get asked that question, I want to answer it the same way, which is the answer is no, I do not get bit by dogs often, very infrequently, if ever. But there's a few reasons for that. One is, listen, I deal with my share of dogs who have bitten people, and I've got one in my kennel right now. So I deal with my share of dogs who have bitten people, but I don't seek out the worst of the worst. And there are dog trainers who kind of want to make their bones. I've been in this game long enough, but guys, I'm in my 60s. I know I don't look it, but I am in my 60s. And so I'm not as fast as I used to be. And I also don't need to prove myself as much as maybe, I used to. So I don't go seeking the worst of the worst. Number one. Number two, my skill set, in my opinion, the vast majority, maybe 100% even, of dog trainers who get bit as a result of a mistake that they have made. And I try very hard not to make that mistake. Do you think if you sell a watch from a different AD to fund a purchase with your new AD that it will look bad? Well, no, they probably won't know. And you might even ask that AD if they want to buy it from you. Yeah, the only thing is about selling back to an AD is they're going to, the selling back to any AD, they're going to offer you the most conservative price. But let's say you have an old original Batman and you want a Starbucks. I don't think there's anything wrong with going to the AD that you want to get the Starbucks from and offering them the first purchase opportunity on the Batman in return for the purchase opportunity on the Starbucks, as long as they're kind of like linked together in some kind of reasonable time frame. So. Oh, look at that. It worked. So what we're going back to was my cure for Dis said that he's had the hiccups for quite a while and he couldn't get rid of them. And I gave him my cure. So I'll repeat it right now. Glad it worked, Dis. Good for you. Good man. You take a bottle of water or you take a glass of water, and here's the long and the short of it. You take a couple of deep breaths to kind of get yourself prepared. And then you take 10 big gulps, quickly followed by 10 small sips, quickly followed by as close to 10 big gulps as you can get. You'll run out of air by that last third, and just no breaths in between. And then the second you got to come up for air, immediately resume even breathing, and you'll be fine. That's how that works. I don't know why. It just does. If you're Master Nutton Asian, if you're referring to my Panda, my Tudor Panda Chrono, yeah, I bought it from the rancher. Indeed, I did. Mason says I should buy your yellow OP41 and complete the set. Well, it won't complete the set. There's still the coral red, which I think honestly is my favorite one. But hey, if you would like me to snipe your OP41 in yellow complete set, feel free to email me at markgoldberg8@gmail.com, and then I'll offer you an offensive price for it, and we'll talk. Happy to talk. Here's the screwy thing about the OP41 line, guys. They're incredibly comfortable. They melt into the, I mean, all Rolexes wear well until you get up into the SD43 and beyond. Then they become a little bit of a challenge to wear. Some of those, they're 43 and 44 millimeter watches get to be a bit challenging. But let me tell you what, this melts into the wrist, you will forget it's there. So I love it. And also it's lume, man. Look at these tiny little indices and the tiny little strips of lume on the hands. You would think that its lume would suck, but honestly, it's very long lasting. It's much better than you would have thought. Craig Schitt says, as Kenny Nguyen said, it's not about the money, it's the passion. And Rolex is like money in the safe. Well, it used to be like you would keep having your $5,000 because you could go get a Rolex sub for $5,000 used. Man, what happened? What happened? Am I rebel streaming yet, guys? I think I probably am. I just wanted to be sure to rebel stream a little bit, but I won't stay on too long. Oh, TPG is the timepiece gentleman. I don't know who the timepiece gentleman is. I don't know anything about it. Timepiece gentleman is Tristan Veneto, TGV, the snake. You got me. I don't know who the timepiece gentleman is, and I don't know who he is or what happened to him. Here's the funny thing about YouTubing. I watch a lot of YouTube. I mean, I watch a ton of YouTube. But the only time I watch watches is when I want to get myself psyched up to wear a model that I have in my collection. So, confession time. If I want to get psyched up to wear the Hulk for a day or two, I'll watch Hulk videos or OP41, whatever it is. If I want to get psyched up to wear a watch, I'll watch, and then of course I've got various guys to choose from. I'm going to stick first to the guys I know, like Random Rob. If he's made a video about a watch, I want Random Rob's opinion because I value it. If you don't know Random Rob, you probably do, but if you don't, you should look him up. Random Rob talks about an incredible variety of watches, from $200-300 G-Shocks all the way up through luxury watches, and he's handled so many watches, this guy Random Rob, that I just feel I feel kinship with him. If he likes it, I almost know I'm going to like it. And you get that way with certain guys. I feel that way also with Bruce Williams, another great channel. I watch Federico. But most of the time, quite frankly, YouTube watch guys like me, we don't watch other YouTube watch guys. We just don't. We get our jollies out by doing what I'm doing right now. And then when we close the computer and we're done with it, we're like, ugh, I'm exhausted. So when I want entertainment, it's like cops do not watch cop shows on TV. They watch hospital shows, but doctors don't watch hospital shows. They watch cop shows. And it's just like that. I mean, trust me, I don't watch dog training on TV. I just can't clear my mind that way. So I watch, I have these weird dreams about, I'll probably never actually leave the United States permanently because I love to work. I love what I do, but I really enjoy the expat communities in specifically Thailand, but for whatever reason, mostly the guys in the Philippines. I just love this. So I watch 10 different Philippine vloggers and, Western people, Americans and whatnot, Brits, Australians so, okay, on and on I went. Remember when the rancher bought Don Haynes GMT and then flipped it? Was that sniping or just firing a revolver at a close range? Well, that's a great story, Craig. That's a classic story. So Don bought a black GMT, and he just very quickly got tired of it, and he sold it to the rancher for like a little under MSRP. And at that time, he could have probably sold it for a little over MSRP, not as much as now, but now it's discontinued. So they're I don't know, what are they, like 12, 14? But anyway, he sold it. he sold it to the rancher for, I don't know, like, let's call it 8. And then 2 days later, the rancher sold it for, let's call it 9. and, and Don was really mad. Was that sniping? Yes, it was. And then, in fact, actually, I think I'm a rank beginner. Okay, I'm a rank beginner in the sniping business. The absolute master of that art is Clyde. He basically snatches them off the dead and dying bodies at the morgue. Right. Speaking of which, go ahead and hit the like button for me. And if you don't subscribe already, please go ahead and do that for me. That will really help me a lot. But hit the like button for sure. Tudor shouldn't offer dress watches if they're trying to be the tool watch company. Well, I don't disagree with that. And I feel like they are narrowing the line somewhat. If you go back 5 years, Tudor made too many models. And most of them were like stuff I wouldn't want. But I do have a weird affinity. I forget the name of it. But they have a day date in steel with a integrated bracelet that I kind of like. But no, I'm kind of with you. I don't think they should make too many dress watches. And I think they are starting to narrow the range. You can find the Tudor inverted panda under retail in forums. Yeah, but it's going to be really close. It's not going to be much under. Would you sell an Omega Speedmaster? And I don't know that reference because I'm not big on speedies. The pre-moon calendar 321, which I know is pretty collectible, to fund the purchase of a new Rolex. No. I probably wouldn't. God isn't making any more of the pre-moon watch. I know that's a collectible one, so just save up. No, I wouldn't. You know, here the problem with buying and selling and churning and burning and flipping and flicking is that we just get bored. You know, we get bored with perfectly good watches like that watch that you're referring, even though I don't know that specific reference number. Here's what I do know. That's somebody's freaking grail. You know, there's somebody that's on the hunt for that thing right now and has been for years and is trying to save up and find a good example. And you're just bored with it. You have it. You just want to get a new Rolex. But you know what? If you do it in another 8 months, you'll be bored with that Rolex. Trust me, I know. So do not get tired of your G.I. Joe and flick it for a new one. Downers Grove. What's up from Downers Grove? Anthony, I train a lot of dogs from Downers Grove. So if you get a dog, let me know. The Sprite is cool. It will be beautiful on your chunky wrist. Well, the thing about this particular wrist, guys, is here's the beauty of it. This is a 7 1/4 inch wrist, but it's not a round wrist. It's a flat wrist, which means I've got all this real estate for lug to lug. I mean, I'm just gonna let's do a quick ASMR where I just let you enjoy the sounds of my wrist. You can play this back at slow motion to get the Jergens. If you guys want 20 minutes of that later, let me know. Truman, love my green OP. Such a different shade of green than the other Rollies. It is true. It turns black in some lights and brilliant green in others, and it just depends on the light. So nice. Air King, the Rare King, from the boutique, which means the AD, I think. Very happy with my purchase. First Rolex. That's a good one. Guys, we have been on for an hour and 28 minutes, and the voice is starting to go. I would like to continue Rebel streaming for just another few minutes, so I'm going to keep it up. But get your questions in now so I can get to them, because we'll be signing off before too much longer, about another 10 minutes. And go ahead and get your questions in now, and smoosh the like button for me, please. Remember, this is the Goldberg Rebel stream. Rebel. Question. I'm looking at my first luxury watch purchase. I appreciate the dive style most. Me too. Modern waggy, me too. And I'm considering Rolex, Omega, and Tudor. Which is the first best luxury diver? It's a huge, huge question, but I'm going to tell you, in my personal opinion, I'm going with best bang for the buck compared to availability. What do I recommend that you do? That. That's what I recommend that you do. That's the Omega Seamaster, as the rancher likes to call it, the Seaman Master. That's the Rolex Seamaster SMP. Can you see the laser cut waves in the dial? It's incredible. This one's known as the Great White. It comes in lots of different colors: black, chrome, blue, or this white. Me, I think you're best off going with the blue or the white. The white's a little hard to get. It's about half the price of the Rolex, and it's not half the quality. It's like right there. There are some things that are better about it than a Rolex. So, and don't get me wrong, I like my Tudors. I like my Tudor divers, but I think what Omega has going for it is that it's a tool watch that's kind of fancy. It's a better clasp than the Omega. Not necessarily a better clasp than the Rolex. Excuse me, the Omega, the Seamaster, has a better clasp than the Tudor. Not necessarily better, different than the Rolex one, but better than the Tudor. So yeah, that would be my choice for you guys. Kid Mambo, good evening, Mark. Love your channel. Thank you, Kid Mambo. I love you for joining me. Thanks for being here. Kid Mambo, do you think more Rolex watches are coming through from the ADs? Here in the UK, more people are getting the call. That's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it, because here's the thing. This happens every year right around this time. Okay, Rolex steps up delivery every late summer, early fall, so that the Rolex ADs can start whittling down their wait lists for Christmas. So Rolex tends to deliver more. I think they just hold them back and then they release them September, October, November. So I think I don't think you're seeing a great change in Rolex production quantity. In other words, I don't think that the basis of supply and demand on Rolex is going to change much right now. But I think what you're seeing is the annual slight increase in supply. Again, Kid Mambo, do you think the watch you wear should represent the dog you walk? I have a new bluesy. Goes great with my black lab. Well, no, shouldn't you have like a black dial to go with your black lab? I don't know how those two things correlate. I just think you should get the watch that you like. I don't try and match them up to my dog. I do have a lot of weird OCD sicknesses in relation to my watch collecting. Like, for example, I probably wear 5 watches every day. If I wake up to pee in the middle of the night, you can almost be assured that I will be changing watches when I do. It's not well. I'm not well, okay, but I'm not trying to match the watch to the dog. I'm not. Oh man, I don't like them. I don't like them, and the reason that I don't like them, Steinhardt, built like a tank. Well, you know, every crappy microband these days is built like a tank. You can get a watch you can get a Phoebos for $300, $400 that's built like a tank. The thing that pisses me off about Steinhardt is how they got their start completely copying Rolex watches and then just blowing them up 1 millimeter. So they really had no design ethic. I would really rather see you buy a watch with some legitimate heritage, for example, for just a little bit more, like a Zinn watch. I'd really, Zinn, S-I-N-N, made in Germany. I would 100 times rather see you buy one of those than a Steiny. That's just my thought. That might not be a popular opinion. I know a lot of people like that watch, but I just feel like they got their entire start by, copying designs that whose copyrights had basically run out. I have mixed feelings about the two-tone Explorer. On the one hand, I want to say, oh my God, like how do you take a sports watch like that and just throw gold on it? But they did it with the Submariner and it works. they did it on the GMT and it works. I mean, like the root beer, I would be very happy to get a root beer. If I don't get the Sprite, if you're listening, ADs of the world, if I don't get a Sprite, I will not feel bad if I get a root beer instead. But the Explorer, it's such a sports watch that it just seems like odd that they would throw two-tone on there. But, rules are meant to be broken. So if you like it, buy it. I absolutely don't think there's anything wrong with it. Certainly fancies it up, heavies it up. What could possibly be wrong with some gold? Scarlet Playtime bought an OP and a Wimbledon from an AD. That those are, I don't know what dial on the OP that you got, but I mean, theoretically, it's entry level luxury, right? This is not the top of the line, but they're freaking hard to get. So it has elevated it, and the Wimbledon is very hard to get, especially the all steel one. I'm on a list for a wish list, which probably means I wish I'll get it, and but I probably never will. So I think that's a good setup. That's a good buy. You're following up here. It was a 2-year waiting list for the Bluesy. Should you check in periodically and chat up the salesperson, or just sit tight and wait 2 years? No, you need to remind them that you're alive. So I would walk into that AD every 3 or 4 months alternate between the OP and the Wimbledon. You want to show them that you still have them. So yeah, no, I would go in there every once in a while. I wouldn't be on them constantly, but I would remind them that you are alive, you are their customer, and that you don't flip their watches. Mendez Fine said, Sunshine Shoulders is my favorite. And what you're referring to, Mendez, is the Calvin, my good friend Calvin Roach, with whom I've had a little bit of private conversation. Great guy. He's one of my favorite vloggers too. Boots on the ground. Yeah, great guy. It's good to take 3 months off in Bangkok. No kidding, Martin Smith. Although, honestly, I like Bangkok, and I have some friends in Bangkok who I would dearly like to visit. And I've trained a couple dogs, believe it or not, for them in Bangkok. For my friend who's a Thai doctor. Great guy, Nick. So anybody needs work done in Bangkok, you let me know. I got you. I got a guy for you. I got a guy. Great guy, great doctor, great friend. But in general, I like Phuket and Pattaya and Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai even a little bit better than Bangkok. But oh my God, what a great country. Food, people, incredible. Oh wow, I'm sorry that it took me so long to notice this. Thurston Howell III with a large super chat. Thank you so much, Thurston. Given present market conditions and your own personal preferences, what Rolex would you buy right now on the gray market, even if it's a model that you already own? And I can answer that right off the top of my head because it's kind of a model I own, but not in a configuration like this. But what I've noticed is the 40 millimeter Submariner blue white gold was like at 50 grand, and now it's like 40. It's actually it's right at its MSRP or below. Now it's discontinued, so its MSRP is a little out of date. But yeah, the white gold sub, that'd be the one. And I don't own it. Mind you, I own 3 subs. I have a black ceramic, just regular one it's ceramic, but it's older. It's like 2012. eBay, $8,500. What a fantastic buy. Hulk, retail. Thank you, James & Sons. Full gold, blue dial, blue bezel, retail. Thank you, James & Sons. But between the 41 millimeter blue ceramic bezel, black dial, and the 40 millimeter blue ceramic bezel, blue sunburst dial, that I prefer that one, and you can't buy that anymore at an AD because it's discontinued. But that would be the one, and It's freaking expensive, man. Now it's like 40 grand, but it's down a lot from where it was. God, I hope it falls to 35. Then I'm going to find it like really hard to say no. Boys and girls, I think it's time we called it quits. Smush the like button for me. Thank you. It's just that I'm losing my voice. I've been on with you an hour and 40 minutes. We've had a very good Rebel stream. I just want to thank you for being with me. Before you pile out of here, hit the like button, subscribe, stay tuned to this channel because we're going to do it again. Goldberg, peacing out with a beautiful Rolex that I sniped. You can too.